Well, the fourth round got underway on a marvellous day 8. We had some interesting battles and then, well, a retired match as well. We're going to focus on 2 matches in our spotlight today, and to do that with me, Blair Henley is back from the Blue Zone. Hello, Blair.
Hello, glad to be back.
Levi Huddleston from the Gig team. Welcome, Levi.
Thanks for having me.
And our expert for today, Ryan Harrison. Welcome to the tennis, Ryan.
Well, it's great to be with you guys. I'm excited to be here.
We're going to start, Ryan, with the women today. Coco Gauff was challenged in a first set against Belinda Bencic, who had a magnificent campaign, but in the end ran out of gas. And Coco goes through to another quarterfinal, 5-7, 6-2, 6-1.
Yeah, the first real test that Coco has faced this year. I think it was the first set that she's dropped any stage in any of the events that she's played this year. Obviously, we know what Belinda can do when she's healthy. She's just had the baby and she's coming back strong. I thought it was a great performance from her today to go out there and play Coco, who has started this year strong, but also finished last year strong. So her form has really been at the top of her game for the last several months. And it's got to be a win for both players. For Coco Gauff, you're looking at the fact that she went through a tough opponent and has made her way into the quarterfinals and is now, in the last 8 and at the stage of the tournament she wants to be in. For Belinda, obviously after this run, she's going to be taking a lot from it, especially getting a set up on Coco.
I was a little bit worried for her, though, after that first set.
Yeah, well, Belinda made it really tough for Coco in that first set, and this is just her 18th match back since last fall. She didn't even know if she was going to play the Australian Open, so to come out here, play the kind of tennis that we know she can play. She's been ranked 4 in the world. She's an Olympic gold medalist, and as you said, Ryan, I think this was a win for her because that first set, if I'm another player, I'm thinking, yikes, watch out. We've got Belinda back on tour, so dangerous, but then it turned into a physical battle. It was over 30 degrees Celsius here. I'm getting my Celsius, which is over 90 degrees
Impressive, yeah.
Fahrenheit. But as soon as it turns into a physical battle, I think Coco has the advantage. And can I just say, props to Coco for knowing that during the match, TikTok went dark in the United States, and she signed the lens, RIP TikTok US.
Wow.
Coco has her finger on the pulse at all times. She never ceases to amaze me, whether it's with the tennis or with her pop culture knowledge.
Not the only one who's got their finger on the pulse. Levi Huddleston from Gig is going to take us inside the match from a numbers perspective.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, obviously Belinda came out there and just crushed that first set. It was a huge battle. She hit 11 winners, but then kind of started to trail off a little bit and only hit 2 more winners for the remainder of the match. So 11-2 and then 0 in the third set. So I guess, what did Coco do a little bit differently? Well, she's an excellent returner. She's one of the top returners that we've ever seen. She has a 46% win rate on the opponent's first serve. That's extremely high. It's in the top 10. So in that first set, it dropped a little bit down to about 38%. And then after that, it climbed back up. And that's really where we saw the difference is when those return numbers started coming back up. We saw her really, breaking serve quite easily and then holding comfortably.
I thought it was interesting, too, looking at Coco's serve stats, and we know that she's made adjustments with her grip on the serve, particularly to help her on the second serve to give her a little bit more of that kick spin. Mm-hmm. Belinda was very effective against Coco's second serve. I think she was winning about 33% of her second serve points in the first set, and I think that might be something for Team Gauff to look at it. And Ryan, I'm wondering if you could speak to that. With getting used to that kick serve, getting used to kicking it more, if it sits up even a little bit, it's easy to take advantage of.
Yeah, it's important that you swing at it just as fast as you do the first serve. You want to spin the ball, but it has to be done with a lot of acceleration through the racket and through the ball. And that's what I noticed a little bit at the U.S. Open when she had some of those double faults. You were just seeing a little bit of lack of confidence and the deceleration in it. But it seems like the work that she's done, she's really accelerating through it nicely. It's got a nice fluid action to it, and the ball's hitting and jumping off the court. And as you guys were noting earlier, getting a lot higher win rate behind her second serve, and that's going to really bode well for her in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, we have an interesting stat behind that, actually. So we track the wrist speed as you go through the service motion. And in that first set, it was the lowest out of all the other sets. And then it started gradually increasing. Serve speed went up. Obviously, she was, putting a little bit more on there. and double faults went down too. So
Well, I love it when the stats match up to what I'm seeing with my
Genius.
naked eye. So, I don't know. It doesn't
You don't
always
even
work
need
out
the
that way, but
stats.
I'll take it. I appreciate the backup, though.
Love it.
Badosa in the next round in the quarterfinals. Is it a similar proposition to Bencic, or is she going to have to come at that match from a slightly different angle?
Well, Badosa's been coming on strong of late. I think that the last year or so, after she had a little bit of an injury and in the previous season, she came on really strong. She's inching back toward the top 10. I think that in the live ranking, she's getting very close to it. And it's just great to see. I mean, obviously, she's great for tennis. She's a great personality. People really relate to her out there on the court. She competes hard. I love her footwork. If you watch Badosa, I was at the Billie Jean King Cup finals this year with Team USA, and I was watching Badosa practice and just looking at her footwork throughout practice, just from the very first ball. Her footwork is phenomenal. You can tell she's incredibly fit. Obviously, she's got a full team around her that's supporting, including Tsitsipas, who I guess is putting on more of a coach's hat this week. He's got,
Is he?
not as much work to go on his side. We don't have to get into that, but he's able to take all of his talents at this sport and really help focusing on Paula and her run through, and it's going to be a fun matchup.
That was one of my funniest moments of the week, actually, in her previous match, watching Stefanos Tsitsipas from the stands say, "Calm down." And most guys know those are two words that you generally try to stay away from. That's if you had, the big trigger button in front of you.
It's the red button.
That's
I
the
didn't
trigger.
see that, but did she say, "I am calm"? Was that her instant reaction?
No, she turned the racket around.
Oh
and
my gosh.
She did one of these. Do
Oh,
you want to
wow.
play?
I love it. I love it. I love the sass. I love it.
But funny enough, in this match, in the post-match interview, she said, "I went out there completely zen today. So zen, in fact, that my team was like, 'Are you going to react?' So who knows? Maybe in the end, Stefanos Tsitsipas had a point."
Yeah, indeed. Well, we're going to look forward to that next round as Gauff takes on Badosa. But the other match for our spotlight focus on day 8, Ryan, well, ended in unfortunate circumstances for Jack Draper, who had really been pushed to the limits over the first 3 rounds. And today against Carlos Alcaraz, fell over after the second set, 7-5, 6-1 before he retired.
Yeah, he got down an early break in that first set and then fought back to get to 5-all, and you really felt like he was trying to dig in everything that he had. It's a really tough turnaround. Look, 5 sets is no joke, and having to do it in back-to-back matches, let alone all 3 down 2-1, and then fighting his way back into the 4th round just to get this far in the tournament after so many matches where he could have gone out is a really good effort. And Jack's a competitor. Look, he handles everything the right way. If you look at the way that he handled even the Aussie crowd in that match with Kokkinakis, embracing that challenge and really stepping up, I loved his response whenever he was saying, "Yeah, I had to have a bit of fun and give it back to him." You can just tell the guy loves tennis. He loves to be out there. He's a really easy guy to like and cheer for. I thought that he emptied his tank. Every last drop that he had in his tank, he went in the first set. And then by the second set, you could tell that he was just starting to labor a bit. And once you get to the stage in the match where you feel like your body's starting to grab at you, it's been a good start to the season for him. And you don't want to jeopardize the rest of your year by staying out there. So I'm sure that it was disappointing for him to have to call it quits there. But if you look at it from a big picture standpoint, from the fact that this is only January, very start of the season from these guys who are going to have to stay healthy for a long run, I was happy to see him pull up today and have a good first set, but obviously unfortunate ending.
yeah, and looking at some of the numbers of them going into that match, we calculate total distance run, and he was at 12 Ks prior to going into the match. Carlos was only about 5 Ks. So, in that first match that Draper played, he probably did more running than Carlos did the entire lead up. So, and those 12 Ks aren't just easy, I'm jogging 12 Ks. It's sprints one way, sprints the other. So it's hard to really fathom how much toll that puts on the body, but he was, pretty gassed going in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great stat, because when you look at that and the physicality that it takes to try and beat one of those top players, I mean, if you look at it from a physical physique standpoint, if you just look at the athlete that Carlos Alcaraz is, you got to be on your A game to compete with this guy. I mean, he's already got 4 majors at his age, and he's trying to win a career Grand Slam by the time he's 22 years old. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I mean, I think about the career Grand Slam. I think about Roger Federer knocking at the door for so many years just trying to win the French Open. I think he finally did in 2009 after how many years of trying?
I think like 6 or 7 years.
Incredible, right? And how long it takes, someone with the likes of Roger to win the career Grand Slam. And now we got Alcaraz. Are you kidding? Already knocking on the door of a career Grand Slam at this stage in his career. If he makes his way to the semis or finals, wow, what an incredible match that will be.
Yeah, and I just have to say, Jack Draper has been really impressive over those 3 matches in terms of his problem solving, because he played Navoni and then Kokkinakis and then Vukic switch. And it's funny, I think he started off slightly more passive in all 3 of those matches, and then by the end was putting the pressure on, driving through the court more, finding his way into the net. And, maybe that's a lesson he can take away. What was working at the end is maybe how he should start.
Yeah. Well, it might not be his tournament, but he's set himself up for a very good year if he can get his body right, because it's marvelous conditioning for Grand Slams to come. Let's turn our attention now to day 9, the continuation of the round of 16. And our match for focus, first of all, Ryan, Elena Rybakina, the 6th seed, to take on your countrywoman, Madison Keys.
Yeah, I thought that Madison Keys was really impressive last night. That was a blockbuster matchup against Danielle Collins. They've played each other a lot on Rod Laver Arena. Madison Keys was having a great season last year and had that unfortunate injury at Wimbledon when she was closing in on the top 10 and playing some great tennis. And to see her regain that form, I think it's been incredible the way that her and Bjorn have worked together. Bjorn Fratangelo, who I played against for a number of years, he's around my age, a former American player who is her husband and coach. I thought that it was really cool, the interview, her talking about the dynamic. But look, for him, I think it's a really good addition to her team from a tennis standpoint. He's a really smart guy. He's a very strategic player. He's always had a mind for the game, and I can say that personally after being around him so long. I've always been really impressed with the way he sees the game. And for her to go out there, she's going to have a great game plan, because if you're looking at just strictly ball striking, Rybakina is as good as it gets, right? Pure ball striker, big girl, big serve, has a really knack for just ball striking. And that's what Madison Keys does well. So I'm going to look and see, is Madison Keys going to go toe-to-toe with her? Or is she going to try and do some things and mix up the slice, mix up the heavy topspin serve, and use some variety?
Yeah, I was looking at some of the numbers, and it was interesting because a lot of times when we look at, what percentage of people are using the forehand slice or forehand topspin, it's usually like 99% are topspin. But with Madison Keys, the backhand slice actually features about 25% of the time. So she's pretty comfortable slicing that shot. And so you'll have to see if she uses that against Rybakina and see if you can break down her defense with that.
Yeah, those two are 2-2 against each other. So Madison Keys does know what it's like to beat Elena Rybakina, but both of those wins came in 2022, I believe, which is prior to peak Rybakina. Another area of potential concern is at the end of Rybakina's 3rd round match. She had the trainer out for some back issues, which can make it hard on the serving side of things, which is one of Rybakina's biggest strengths. Also, keep an eye on the fact that Madison Keys switched rackets at the beginning of this year. Her 2nd tournament of the season, wins in Adelaide, and comes in here and has been incredibly sharp. So keep an eye on Maddie Keys going from the Wilson racket to the Yonex racket. Talked in depth to Bjorn Fratangelo about that on the Blue Zone. I hope you all are watching the Blue Zone live, 4 o'clock local time on
this
YouTube.
very channel.
On this very channel. That's right. Hope you all are checking it out. We've had some really interesting talks, but Bjorn really broke down how she decided to switch, what the process was like, and what this new racket has given her, which is the same ball striking ability, but just maybe a little more margin, both in the sweet spot and in terms of how she's hitting it.
Well, our match focus for day 9 for the men is the world number 1, Jannik Sinner. He takes on Holger Rune, who just escaped the clutches of Miomir Kecmanovic on day 7.
Just escaped, and as we've come to see in some more recent Holger Rune matches, not quite sure why it got to that point in the first place. He could have made it a little bit more straightforward for himself, but Holger Rune has the flash. I don't know that I ever see him beating someone like Jannik Sinner in straight sets, but do I think that Holger Rune can come up with 3 sets wherever they happen to fall of really flashy, disruptive tennis? Yes, I do.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the stats, like they both hit huge balls. It's like 129 kilometers per hour for Sinner versus 125 for Rune. Like they hit big shots. And looking at the unforced errors, you think that Sinner would be a little bit cleaner than Rune is, but they're actually quite similar in terms of their average matched unforced errors. So we'll have to see when those unforced errors happen, because that is, what makes or breaks someone in a tennis match is not how many errors, but, what key points you're making those errors. So I think it will be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I think that just strictly by the stats, Rune is a guy who was talking about himself as being part of the new big 3. I think he he might have painted that target on his back a little bit whenever he was making those comments, kind of grouping himself in there with Sinner and Alcaraz whenever they had both kind of taking that next jump, and he was trying to put himself in that category. And then, he took a little bit of a step back. He had Patrick Mouratoglou in and out of his coaching team at different stages, was playing with that sort of part of it. How much did he need Patrick involved? How much was he not going to be involved? And looking to try and figure out the right stability in the team around him. We know what he can do. He's been a top 5 player before, so for a 4th round match, that's going to be a really tough matchup for Sinner. Sinner is obviously coming in with a head of steam. He's playing great tennis. He looked phenomenal the other night. He's suffocating with the way he plays inside the baseline. I think that's something that Novak Djokovic talked about him playing against Sinner when he played him in Shanghai last year. He said he felt like it was playing a younger version of himself in the way that Sinner is able to take time away from you. And that's the key difference right now between the way that I see Sinner playing and the way that I see Rune playing. Sometimes Holger just tends to hang back a little bit, let players like Kecmanovic work their way into the match. And Blair, that's what you were talking about. It kind of gets a little bit more difficult and tricky than it needs to be. And you see someone like Sinner, who's been at the top of the game for a while now, when he gets in control, he doesn't let up at all. You are absolutely under the gun the entire time. But now he's got to play Holger, and Holgers get to play spoiler. It's a different sort of mindset. And these guys are both young. I'm really looking forward to it.
What lessons can the other players take from a Tristan Schoolkate, who in the second round was so incredibly disruptive with a serve and volley game style, which is not something we see often, taking the ball super early? What lessons, Ryan, can other players take from that in terms of how to disrupt the rhythm of Jannik Sinner?
Well, I always say when you watch a tennis match and you see 2 players playing, you can typically see who's the driver and who's the passenger. And that doesn't really have to do with the score. That's just watching the way that the point's developing and watching the attitude in between the points. And you can see who's really controlling the emotions out there. And oftentimes, that's the person who's higher ranked and has the match in their advantage. And I thought that Tristan did a really good job of playing some tennis on his terms, especially early on in the match, and it was disruptive. If you go out there and you play someone like Sinner and you let him play on his terms, over 3 out of 5 sets, you're not going to come out on top. You've got to do something that's going to play the match on your terms. And what I'm going to be looking for, because Rune is not going to get in the net as much as, say, as Schoolkate was. Obviously, we know what Holger can do. He's a more accomplished player, but he's not going to be transitioning as much. But if you just pay attention strictly to where they're at on the baseline, if you see Sinner up on top of the baseline and Holger way back behind the Melbourne sign, that's going to be trouble. If you get to see Holger up inside the court and running Sinner a bit, that's the one area of Sinner's game that you can try and exploit a little bit, because he's not a guy who goes to the slice as much. He doesn't use a lot of versatility. He's more of a guy who just is a ball striker, and he is so good at it that we don't need to talk about how good he is. I mean, we know how good he is. But if you can get him running, that's the one time that you can expose him a little bit, and Holger is going to need to do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think he's really got to hold serve. I mean, that's such a, I don't know, offhand thing to say. Everyone knows that. But when Holger Rune has been broken and then he'll break right back, but those stats actually go in favor of Sinner on both accounts. So if Sinner gets an early break, 96% of the time he wins that set. That's the highest that we've seen on the men's tour. And then the break right back, like if Sinner gets broken, he's going to break right back 26% of the time. So it's like some of these odds don't favor Rune. And if he does get broken or gets the break, he still has to put his foot on the gas pedal to make sure that he's going to close out the set.
Do we know what their head-to-head is currently to date?
2-2.
2-2.
And it's similar actually to the Rybakina Keys head-to-head in that Sinner has the most recent 2 wins, and Holger in 2022 and 2023 got his first 2 wins over Sinner. So maybe before peak Sinner, but Holger's a guy that can take a little morsel of confidence and put it on his back and start the jetpack. So we'll see.
He's a good investor in confidence, isn't
He is.
Plenty to look forward to. And before we let you go, I know you're all American again, but my goodness, have the youngsters been impressive this year. A quick word about Lerner Tien and Alex Mickelson.
Well, I mean, a lot of it goes without saying, right? These guys are in the 4th round, doing it in 2 historic fashion, right? You have Lerner, in the first teenager in the 4th round of the Australian Open since Nadal.
2005.
2005. And then you have Mickelson, who is winning against 2 top 20 players in the way to the fourth round, and that hadn't happened since early 2000s as well. So it's really impressive what these guys are doing. I love that they grew up together. They had a similar coaching team growing up, and Eric Diaz and Jay Levitt. Yes. And so I believe that these guys are feeding off each other. I think that they're seeing each other in the later stages of the Grand Slam locker room. And that's actually something that is a underrated thing or under-conversated thing, right? When you get in the locker room, the first couple days that you're there, everybody is in there. You can't walk from here to there without bumping into someone's shoulder. And then you get to the point where in the second week, and all of a sudden you're walking in, and now you know the locker room attendant by his first name. They're asking you what time you play. You're seeing people that are in the locker room with you. You're looking in the corner, and in that section it's Sinner, and in that section it's Alcaraz. And then you got Alex Mickelson and Laurentien sitting there like, and it's us. Let's go. And they're feet, and they get to play this spoiler, and they have done so and pushed each other. So I expect to see those guys, talking about it. I'm sure that they are talking about it a bit. And Alex playing that late night match against Demonar. It's going to be really cool because Alex loves to play the villain whenever he has to. I mean, he's a good guy, but he definitely can embody that spoiler if he needs to. So I think he's going to have a really fun time out there. I don't think it's going to be a situation where the Aussie crowd breaks down his spirit. I think he's going to feed on that energy, and I think that he's going to push Demonar in that match. It's going to be really fun, and I actually think Lerner is the favorite in his match. Assuming his hamstring holds up, which we were kind of paying attention to in his last match, and he seemed to be moving better and better as the match went on. But if he's healthy, I've got Lerner over Sonego in a 4-set battle.
Nice.
Ooh. Big predictions here on the tennis
He's
tonight.
just, as soon as he broke through Medvedev, it sort of opened up for him. But it's been just such an impressive campaign. It's hard not to fall in love with players like that. Well, Blair and Levi and Ryan, thank you so much for your insights tonight.
Thanks, John. This is great.
Plenty to look forward to on day 9. If you'd like to hear the full episode of The Tennis, just search for The Tennis wherever you get your podcasts or click the link below. And of course, you can subscribe to this channel to make sure you see all these episodes and the Blue Zone every day of the Australian Open and beyond. And we'll catch you tomorrow. Bye.